This is a fictional story created for entertainment and reflection. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental. Our purpose is to explore timeless themes of pride, vulnerability, and redemption that might offer insights for our own lives. The house had never been quiet before. Edmund Hartley, 5th Earl of Thornwick, woke to an absence so profound it felt like a physical presence in the room. The pale light of dawn filtered through the heavy curtains of his bedchamber, casting long shadows across the Persian carpet and the mahogany furniture that had belonged to his grandfather. Everything was as it should be. Everything was precisely in its place. And yet, something fundamental had shifted in the architecture of his world. He lay still for a moment, listening. No footsteps in the corridor outside. No soft humming from the adjoining chamber. No rustle of fabric. No gentle closing of drawers. No quiet murmur of conversation with the maid. The silence pressed against his ears like water, heavy and unnatural. Edmund sat up slowly, his body moving before his mind had fully accepted what his instincts already knew. The door to the connecting chamber stood slightly ajar, not open, not closed, but suspended in that uncertain space between presence and absence. He had never paid particular attention to that door before. For 3 years of marriage, it had simply been there, a polite barrier between his world and hers, opened when propriety or duty required, closed when solitude was preferred. Now it seemed the most significant object in the entire house. He rose, pulling on his dressing gown with movements that felt oddly mechanical, as though his hands belonged to someone else. The floor was cold beneath his bare feet as he crossed to the door. He should ring for his valet. He should dress properly before investigating. But propriety seemed a strange concern when confronted with this peculiar emptiness. The connecting chamber was immaculate. Too immaculate. Eleanor's writing desk, usually cluttered with correspondence and half-finished sketches, was bare save for the inkwell and pen stand, arranged with geometric precision. The wardrobe doors stood open, revealing gaps where her traveling clothes had hung. The small bookshelf she had insisted on bringing from her father's house, that shelf had caused such an absurd argument with the housekeeper about appropriate furniture placement, now held only half its usual contents. Edmund stood in the center of the room, turning slowly, cataloguing each absence as though he were taking inventory after a burglary. The miniature portrait of her mother that usually sat on the mantelpiece, gone. The shawl she draped over the chair by the window when she read in the afternoons, gone. The lavender sachets she tucked into every drawer, filling the room with that distinctive scent that he had, without quite realizing it, come to associate with home, gone. All of it, methodically removed. Not in haste, not in anger, but with the careful deliberation of someone who had thought through every detail, who had planned this departure with the same meticulous attention she brought to arranging flowers or organizing the household accounts. Have you ever noticed how silence can be louder than shouting? How the absence of something or someone can fill a space more completely than their presence ever did? He moved to the window, drawing back the curtain with fingers that trembled slightly. The parkland stretched before him, still wrapped in morning mist, the great oaks standing like sentinels in the grey light. Somewhere beyond those trees, beyond the iron gates he could just make out in the distance, a carriage had carried Eleanor away while he slept. While he slept. The thought stuck in his mind like a thorn. She had left in the darkness, in the hours when the house was silent and the servants were abed, when there would be no witnesses, no awkward farewells, no scene. It was considerate in its way, civilized. Exactly the sort of thing Eleanor would do, spare everyone discomfort, even in the act of leaving. Edmund pressed his forehead against the cool glass, his breath fogging the pain. When had he last truly looked at his wife? Not the cursory glance across the breakfast table or the formal acknowledgement in the drawing room, but actually looked at her, seen her as more than a fixture in his household, more than the elegant, quiet woman who managed his estates with remarkable efficiency and graced his table with perfect deportment. He tried to remember the last conversation they had shared that went beyond practical arrangements and social pleasantries. The silence in his memory was as profound as the silence in the house. 3 years earlier, their wedding had been everything a union between the Earl of Thornwick and the daughter of Baron Ashworth should be. Dignified, well-attended, entirely suitable. Edmund had been 32, finally yielding to the persistent pressure from his mother and his solicitors that it was time to marry, time to produce an heir, time to stop living like a man who believed he could postpone the future indefinitely. Eleanor Ashworth had seemed the obvious choice. She was 23, handsome rather than beautiful, with clear grey eyes and dark hair that she wore in an unfashionably simple style. She was educated without being blue-stocking, accomplished without being ostentatious, and possessed what his mother termed a sensible disposition. More importantly, she had accepted his proposal with calm composure, as though marriage to him were a business arrangement that she found entirely reasonable. Which, Edmund reflected now with something like bitterness, it had been. He had courted her, if one could call it courting, with the same efficiency he brought to managing his estates. Proper calls at proper intervals, appropriate gifts, a proposal delivered in her father's library with all due formality. She had said yes with a slight smile, her hands folded in her lap, her voice steady. He had felt something like relief. No hysterics, no declarations, no messy emotions to navigate. Just two reasonable people making a reasonable arrangement. The wedding night had been civilized, that word again. Eleanor had been composed, compliant, neither enthusiastic nor reluctant. They had performed their duty to one another with the same courtesy they might have shown at a dinner party. Afterwards she had retreated to her chamber, and he to his, and they had established a pattern that had continued with minor variations for 3 years. Separate chambers, separate lives that intersected at mealtimes and social obligations. Polite conversation, courteous distance, everything proper, everything appropriate, everything empty. Sometimes we mistake comfort for contentment, don't we? We build walls of routine and call them stability. We confuse the absence of conflict with the presence of peace. Edmund turned from the window, his jaw tightening. This was absurd. Eleanor had duties, responsibilities. She was his wife, the Countess of Thornwick. She could not simply leave. There would be scandal. Her family would be embarrassed. His position would be compromised. He strode to his own chamber and rang violently for his valet. Within minutes, Morrison appeared, his face carefully neutral in that way servants perfected when they knew more than they could say. "Morrison, where is Lady Thornwick?" The valet's pause was infinitesimal but telling. "I believe her ladyship departed early this morning, my lord." "Departed where?" "I understand she has gone to stay with her aunt in Bath, my lord." Bath, 200 miles away. Not a brief visit to London, not a week at a neighbouring estate. Bath, where invalids and widows went to take the waters and live quietly away from society. "Did she leave any message?" Another pause. "I believe there is a letter in the library, my lord." "Of course there was." Eleanor would never leave without the proper paperwork. She probably had a list of instructions for the housekeeper, an updated inventory of the linen cupboard, and detailed notes on the kitchen garden. Edmund dressed with furious speed, barely allowing Morrison to adjust his cravat before he was striding down the corridor toward the library. The house felt different in the morning light, larger somehow, and colder. How many rooms did this place have that he never entered? How many corners had Eleanor occupied while he spent his days riding the estate or locked in his study with account books? The library smelled of leather and old paper, and the faint tang of the wood fire that was always kept burning in cool weather. Eleanor's letter lay on his desk, propped against the inkwell, sealed with her personal stamp. Not his family's crest, he noted with a sharp pang. Her own. He broke the seal with hands that were not quite steady. "My Lord Edmund, I write to inform you that I have gone to reside with my Aunt Philippa in Bath. This is not a decision I have made in haste or in anger, but one I have considered carefully over many months. I wish to assure you that I hold you in the highest regard. You have been unfailingly courteous, generous in material matters, and scrupulous in fulfilling all duties required by our union. The fault, if fault there be, lies not with you, but with my own unrealistic expectations of what marriage might be. When I accepted your proposal, I believed that mutual respect and compatible temperaments would be sufficient foundation for a contented life. I have come to understand that I was mistaken, not about your character, which is exemplary, but about my own capacity to live contentedly without something more. I do not ask for a dissolution of our marriage, nor do I seek to cause scandal. I simply require time away from Thornwick Hall to consider my future with clearer eyes. My aunt has graciously offered her home, and I have arranged matters so that the household should continue without disruption. Please accept my apology for any inconvenience this departure may cause you. I remain, as always, respectfully yours. Eleanor Hartley. Edmund read the letter twice, then a third time, searching for anger, for accusation, for any indication of the emotions that must surely lie beneath these carefully measured words. But Eleanor had given him only facts, delivered with the same considerate efficiency she brought to every aspect of their lives together, without something more. What did that mean? What more could she possibly want? He had given her everything: a title, security, freedom to manage the household as she saw fit, freedom from interference in her daily life. He had never been cruel, never been unfaithful, never demanded more than duty required. He had been in every way a correct husband, and she had left him while he slept. Edmund sank into the chair behind his desk, the letter still in his hand. Through the window, he could see the gardens Eleanor had redesigned in their first year of marriage, transforming his mother's rigid parterres into something softer, more natural. Wild roses climbed the south wall now, and lavender lined the paths. He had approved the changes with barely a glance, relieved that she had found something to occupy her time. Had she been unhappy? She had never said, never complained, never wept or raged, or given any indication that their civilized arrangement was anything other than satisfactory. But then he had never asked, "Tell me, when did you last ask someone how they truly felt beyond the polite, 'How are you?' When did you last look past the surface of someone's composure to see what might be breaking underneath?" He sat in the library as the morning light strengthened, surrounded by books he had never read, in a house that had never been a home, with a letter from a wife who had become a stranger without him noticing the transformation. The house fell quiet at dawn, and Edmund Hartley, 5th Earl of Thornwick, finally understood what he had lost. He simply had no idea how to get it back. The first week without Eleanor passed in a peculiar suspension of time. Edmund found himself maintaining his usual routines with mechanical precision, rising at the same hour, riding the same routes across the estate, taking his meals in the dining room at the appointed times. But the routines that had once provided structure now felt hollow, like performing a play to an empty theatre. The servants moved through the house with their customary efficiency, but Edmund caught the glances they exchanged when they thought he was not looking. The housekeeper, Mrs. Daventry, brought household matters to his attention that Eleanor had previously managed without bothering him. The choices seemed absurd. Did he truly need to express a preference between two varieties of table linen? Did he care which arrangements were sent to the church for Sunday service? Eleanor had cared. He saw that now in 100 small details he had never noticed before. The flowers in the entrance hall changed twice weekly and always arranged with an artist's eye for color and balance. The menus that varied not just by season, but by some mysterious knowledge of his preferences he had never articulated. The way the library fire was always burning when he entered in the evening, the way his favorite chair faced the window just so to catch the afternoon light. She had been paying attention while he had been, what, absent? Present but unseeing? He began to notice other absences. The small sounds that had punctuated his days, the rustle of her skirts passing in the corridor, the quiet murmur of her voice giving instructions, the soft notes of the pianoforte drifting from the music room in the afternoons. He had not realized how those sounds had woven themselves into the fabric of his daily existence until they were gone. We rarely appreciate the music of someone's presence until we're surrounded by the silence of their absence. On the 8th day, Edmund gave up any pretense of normalcy and shut himself in his study with the estate ledgers, determined to lose himself in work. But even there, Eleanor's influence was evident. The accounts were meticulously organized, notes in her neat hand explaining various decisions about suppliers and household expenditures. She had saved him thousands of pounds with careful management, had negotiated better. Terms with merchants had seen inefficiencies he had overlooked for years. He found a separate ledger, smaller than the others, tucked at the back of the shelf. Curious, he opened it. It was a household diary of sorts, but not the kind kept by most ladies of quality. Eleanor had not recorded social calls or menu plans. Instead, she had noted observations: which tenant farmers needed assistance with repairs, which village families were struggling, small kindnesses that could be extended without fanfare. Next to each entry, she had marked whether the matter had been addressed and how. Edmund turned the pages slowly, seeing his estate through his wife's eyes. She knew his people better than he did. She had noticed things: a child's illness, a roof in need of mending, an elderly widow who needed firewood for winter, and had quietly ensured these matters were resolved, often without mentioning them to him at all. Why had she never spoken of this work? Why had he never asked? The answer sat heavy in his chest. Because he had not wanted to know. He had been content, no, not content, merely willing, to have Eleanor manage the domestic sphere while he attended to what he considered the important matters of the estate. He had drawn a line between their worlds and had been satisfied to let her remain on her side of it. When had that line become a wall? Edmund's mother arrived on the 10th day, her carriage announced by the crunch of gravel and the flurry of activity that always accompanied the Dowager Countess's visits. She swept into the drawing room in a rustle of grey silk, her posture impeccable despite her 60 years, her eyes sharp as a hawk's. "Edmund," she presented her cheek for his dutiful kiss. "I came as soon as I received your letter. This is a fine mess. Good afternoon, Mother. I trust you had a pleasant journey. Don't be tedious." She arranged herself on the settee with the air of a general preparing for battle. "What did you do? I beg your pardon?" To Eleanor. "What did you do to make her flee to Bath like a frightened rabbit?" Edmund stiffened. "I did nothing. I have been entirely absent. Yes, I can imagine." His mother fixed him with the look that had quelled him as a boy and still made him uncomfortable as a man. "Eleanor is not the sort of woman who leaves a perfectly good household on a whim. She is sensible, dutiful, and far too well-bred to cause scandal without provocation. I assure you, I have been a proper husband in every respect." Proper. His mother repeated the word as though it tasted of ashes. "Yes, I imagine you have been. Just as you were a proper son, a proper heir, a proper Earl. So very proper that you cannot see past the end of your own propriety to notice when someone is dying of loneliness right before your eyes." The accusation struck with unexpected force. Edmund turned away, moving to the window where he seemed to spend so much time lately, staring at landscapes that offered no answers. "You sound as though you think I am entirely at fault," he said quietly. "I think you are a man who learned very young to protect himself by feeling very little. And I think you married a woman capable of feeling a great deal, then proceeded to starve her of any emotional sustenance while congratulating yourself on your correctness." Edmund's hands clenched behind his back. "That is remarkably unfair." "Is it?" His mother's voice softened slightly. "Tell me, Edmund, when did you last have a conversation with your wife about anything that mattered? When did you last ask her about her thoughts, her hopes, her fears? When did you last touch her with tenderness rather than duty?" The silence stretched between them. Answer enough. His mother sighed. "I thought as much. You are your father's son, unfortunately. He was a good man, an honorable man, but he kept his heart locked so tight that I spent 30 years trying to find the key. I had resigned myself to a marriage of surfaces when he died. I would not wish that for you, nor for Eleanor. How many of us build walls thinking they are shields? How many of us confuse emotional discipline with emotional strength?" Edmund turned to face her. "Why did you not say something before? If you saw, what I saw was two people being impeccably polite to each other, which is what society demands. I had hoped that time might thaw you both, that children might provide a bridge. But 3 years have passed, and still you circle each other like strangers at a ball." She paused. "Has it occurred to you to wonder why there are no children?" The question hung in the air, unspoken implications crowding around it. Edmund's throat felt tight. "These matters take time. These matters require more than occasional duty, Edmund. They require actual intimacy, the kind that exists not just in the body, but in the heart and mind." His mother rose, smoothing her skirts. "I am not unsympathetic. I know you had your reasons for closing yourself off. That business with Miranda Ashford, do not speak of her." The words came out sharper than he intended. His mother regarded him with something like pity. "That was 8 years ago, Edmund. You cannot let one youthful betrayal poison the rest of your life. I do not... He stopped, recognizing the lie before it fully formed. Miranda has nothing to do with Eleanor. Doesn't she? A woman who claimed to love you, who accepted your devotion and your proposal, then jilted you 3 weeks before the wedding to run off with a younger son with better prospects. That left no mark on how you approached your next marriage. Edmund said nothing. What could he say? That Miranda's defection had been the formative humiliation of his life, that he had stood in this very house reading her letter, feeling something vital crack inside him, that he had vowed never again to offer his heart so completely, never again to expose himself to that particular species of pain. You chose Eleanor precisely because she seemed safe, his mother continued relentlessly, because she was sensible and calm and unlikely to inspire dangerous feelings. You thought you could have marriage without risk. But there is no marriage without risk, Edmund. And Eleanor, poor girl, has been paying the price for your cowardice. I am not a coward. Then prove it. Go to Bath. Win your wife back. Edmund laughed, a harsh sound. She does not want to be won. She wants something more. Something I clearly cannot provide. His mother studied him for a long moment. Do you love her? The question should have been simple. Instead, Edmund found himself floundering. Love. He respected Eleanor. He admired her competence. He appreciated her quiet presence. Was that love? Or was love the consuming passion he had felt for Miranda, the kind that had nearly destroyed him when it was betrayed? I do not know what I feel, he admitted finally. I have been so determined not to feel too much that I may have succeeded in feeling nothing at all. Then perhaps, his mother said gently, you should start by figuring that out. After his mother departed, Edmund found himself drawn to places in the house he rarely visited, rooms that Eleanor had inhabited, spaces she had transformed with her quiet presence. The music room where the pianoforte sat silent now, sheet music still open to the piece she had been practicing. He did not know she played Handel. He could not recall ever. Pausing to listen. The conservatory, where she kept orchids and other delicate plants that required patient tending. Some were blooming now in profusions of white and purple, filling the glass room with subtle fragrance. He touched the petals of one flower, marveling at the intricate structure. Eleanor must have spent hours here, nurturing these living things while he, rode past the windows without looking in. The small sitting room she had claimed as her private space, furnished with pieces from her family home and filled with books he had never noticed. He pulled one from the shelf, poetry by Wordsworth, margins filled with her neat annotations. Another, a philosophical treatise by Mary Wollstonecraft that made him raise his eyebrows. His wife, it seemed, had intellectual depths he had never bothered to plumb. What do we really know about the people who share our lives? How much do we assume rather than discover? On the 14th day, Edmund received a letter from Eleanor's aunt in Bath. Lady Philippa Ashworth was Eleanor's maternal aunt, a widow known for her sharp wit and sharper tongue. Edmund had met her only twice, once at the wedding, once at a dinner in London, and had found her vaguely unsettling in the way she looked at him as though she could see through his carefully maintained facade. Her letter was direct. Lord Thornwick, Eleanor arrived safely and is installed in the blue bedroom with a view of the garden. She spends her days reading, walking, and absolutely refusing to discuss you beyond confirming that you have not behaved criminally. I will not insult your intelligence by pretending I do not know what has transpired. My niece has the most annoyingly principled way of suffering in silence, a trait I blame entirely on her mother's side of the family. She would sooner swallow glass than admit she married a man incapable of seeing her as more than an efficient housekeeper. However, I am not bound by Eleanor's good breeding, so I shall be frank. If you intend to win her back, and I do not know if you do or should, you had best bring more than apologies and promises. My niece has had 3 years of hollow propriety. What she needs is to matter to someone, to be seen, to be known. Can you offer her that? If not, do her the kindness of leaving her in peace. Lady Philippa Ashworth Edmund read the letter until he had memorized its every cutting word. Then he sat in his study, watching the afternoon light fade, considering all the ways. He had failed to see the woman he had married. Eleanor wanted to matter to someone, to be seen, to be known, such simple things, such impossible things, when you had spent years perfecting the art of not truly seeing anyone at all, but perhaps, and the thought came with a flutter of something that might have been hope or might have been fear, perhaps he could learn. Is it ever too late to truly see someone? To choose to know them, not as we assumed they were, but as they actually are? The house remained quiet. But in that quiet, something was beginning to stir, a possibility, fragile as a new leaf, that silence was not the only option. Edmund pulled out fresh paper and uncapped his ink. He would not write to Eleanor. Not yet. He did not trust himself to find the right words, and empty promises would only confirm her decision to leave. Instead, he would make a different choice. He would begin to see, truly see, what he had overlooked. And perhaps, in seeing, he might begin to understand what he stood to lose. Outside, dusk gathered over the estate. In the growing darkness, Edmund lit a single candle and began for the first time in 3 years to pay attention. Bath in late spring was insufferable. Edmund arrived on a Friday afternoon, his carriage joining the parade of vehicles that clogged the streets approaching the pump room. Everywhere he looked, invalids and their attendants moved in slow procession, the very air seeming to drip with the lethargy of people who had come, here to recover from various ailments, real or imagined. He had taken rooms at the Christopher Inn, unwilling to impose on Lady Philippa without invitation, and had spent his first evening pacing the floors like a caged animal, rehearsing and discarding various approaches. By morning he had settled on direct action. He would call on Lady Philippa's residence, request an audience with Eleanor, and then what? He still had no clear plan beyond the desperate need to see his wife, to confirm with his own eyes that she was well, that she was real, that this entire situation could somehow be resolved. Lady Philippa's home was an elegant Georgian townhouse on the Royal Crescent, its honey-coloured stone glowing in the morning sun. Edmund climbed the steps with a pounding heart that he told himself was merely from the exertion of the climb, though the steps were neither steep nor numerous. A maid answered his knock and received his card with practiced neutrality. "I shall inquire whether Lady Philippa is receiving, my lord." He was shown to a drawing room that overlooked the gardens, filled with comfortable furniture and books scattered on every surface. Apparently, a love of reading ran in Eleanor's family. Edmund studied the spines, political philosophy, travel accounts, novels by authors he barely recognized. Not at all the sort of improving literature his own mother kept in her drawing room. Lord Thornwick. He turned to find Lady Philippa in the doorway, regarding him with the same unsettling directness he remembered. She was perhaps 50, handsome in a severe way, with grey hair arranged in an unfashionable style and a dress that suggested comfort over current fashion. "Lady Philippa," he bowed. "Thank you for receiving me." She moved into the room, settling into a chair and gesturing for him to sit. "Eleanor is not here." His disappointment must have shown on his face, because Lady Philippa's expression softened fractionally. "She has gone to the pump room with Captain Sinclair. They should return within the hour if you wish to wait." Captain Sinclair. The name meant nothing to him. "A friend of yours?" "A friend of Eleanor's now. Thomas Sinclair, younger son of Lord Ashburn, recently returned from India, where he served with distinction. He is staying with his sister while he recovers from a wound received in some skirmish or another. Charming man." Eleanor finds his conversation stimulating. Each word landed like a small stone. Eleanor had been in Bath for 3 weeks and had already formed a friendship, a stimulating friendship, with a decorated war hero. A man who presumably knew how to talk to women about interesting matters. A man who was not Edmund. "I see. I doubt you do." Lady Philippa leaned back in her chair, studying him. "Tell me, Lord Thornwick, why have you come to Bath?" "To see my wife." "That is what you have come to do." I asked why. Edmund struggled to articulate feelings he barely understood himself. "Because she left. Because the house is different without her." "Different how?" "Emptier." "Ah, so you miss having an efficient housekeeper." "That is not—" He stopped, recognizing the trap. "I miss Eleanor. Not her efficiency. Her." "Do you?" Lady Philippa's gaze was relentless. "Can you describe her to me? Not her appearance or her accomplishments, but her. What makes Eleanor laugh? What makes her angry? What does she fear? What does she dream about?" The questions hung in the air. Indictments in the form of inquiry. Edmund opened his mouth, closed it, felt something like shame wash through him. I do not know. Precisely. Lady Philippa sighed. Lord Thornwick, I do not wish to be cruel, but you must understand that Eleanor did not leave you because you were unkind. She left because you were absent. You married her, and then proceeded to ignore her so thoroughly that she might as well have been a ghost in your house. I never ignored. You gave her polite attention. Social courtesy, the same regard you might give a competent servant. Is that not ignoring the woman even as you acknowledge the wife? Have you ever been in a room full of people and still felt utterly alone? Have you ever been married to someone who treated you with perfect courtesy and absolute indifference? Before Edmund could formulate a response, voices in the entrance hall announced Eleanor's return. His breath caught in his throat. After 3 weeks, he was about to see her again, and he had no idea what to say. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, her cheeks pink from walking, her hair slightly disheveled by the wind. She looked different, not in any way he could precisely identify, but different nonetheless. More present, perhaps, more substantial. Behind her came a tall man in his early 30s, his military bearing evident despite a slight limp, his sun-weathered face animated with laughter at something Eleanor had just said. Then Eleanor saw Edmund. The colour drained from her face. Her hand, which had been gesturing as she spoke, froze mid-air. For a moment she looked as though she might turn and flee. Then her composure settled over her like a cloak, that familiar polite mask that he suddenly recognized for what it was, a shield against him. Lord Thornwick. Her voice was level, betraying nothing. This is unexpected. He rose, suddenly clumsy, aware of Captain Sinclair's curious gaze, and Lady Philippa's assessment, and Eleanor's carefully neutral expression. Lady Thornwick, I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all. The lie was delivered with perfect courtesy. Aunt Philippa, Lord Thornwick, may I present Captain Thomas Sinclair? Captain, my husband, the Earl of Thornwick. Husband. The word sounded strange in her mouth, formal and distant. Captain Sinclair bowed with easy grace. An honor, my lord. Lady Thornwick has spoken of you. Had she? What had she said? Edmund found himself irrationally curious about how Eleanor described him to others. What words she chose, what tone she employed. Captain, I understand you have recently returned from India. Just 3 months past. Still finding England oddly cold and damp, though I suppose I shall readjust. Sinclair's smile was genuine, his manner open and friendly. Edmund wanted to dislike him and found he could not. The man seemed entirely without artifice, the kind of person who probably made friends wherever he went, the kind of person Eleanor would naturally find stimulating. Thomas has been regaling me with tales of his travels, Eleanor said, moving further into the room with a grace Edmund had seen 1,000 times, but somehow never truly noticed. The architecture in Rajasthan sounds extraordinary. He has promised to show me his sketches. You sketch, Captain? Amateur efforts only, my lord. Something to pass the time during long marches. Lady Thornwick is far too generous in her interest. I am not generous, merely curious. Eleanor's voice held a warmth Edmund could not recall hearing directed at him in years. The world beyond England seems so vast, so full of wonders we never see. You should travel, my lady. India would suit you, I think. You have the mind for it. Curious, observant, open to what is different, rather than threatened by it. Edmund watched this exchange with growing disquiet. They spoke to each other with the ease of long friendship, finishing each other's thoughts, sharing references that excluded him entirely. How had this developed in mere weeks? Or had Eleanor always been capable of this warmth, this animation, and he had simply never inspired it? Lord Thornwick has come to visit you, Eleanor, Lady Philippa interjected, her tone deceptively mild. Perhaps you might spare him a few moments' private conversation? Eleanor's hands tightened on her reticule, the first sign of discomfort she had shown. Of course. Edmund, shall we walk in the garden? Edmund. Not my lord. Simply his name, but spoken with such careful neutrality that it might as well have been a stranger's. The garden behind Lady Philippa's house was small, but beautifully maintained, with climbing roses and flowering herbs, creating pockets of fragrance. Eleanor led him down a gravel path, maintaining a precise distance between them, close enough for propriety, far enough to make clear that intimacy was not invited. For a long moment, neither spoke. Edmund found himself memorizing details. The way afternoon light caught in her hair, the graceful line of her neck, the slight tension in her shoulders that suggested she was not as composed as she appeared. "You look well," he offered finally, the words inadequate. "Thank you. Bath agrees with me." She paused by a rose bush, touching the petals with gentle fingers. "Why have you come, Edmund?" The directness of the question caught him off guard. This was unlike Eleanor, or unlike the Eleanor he thought he knew. She had always been so careful, so diplomatic. This bluntness was something new. "I wanted to see you, to understand why you left. I explained in my letter. Your letter raised more questions than it answered." He moved closer, though she did not look at him. "Eleanor, if I have failed you in some way, if there is something you need that I have not provided, it is not about providing." She turned to face him finally, her grey eyes steady. "You have provided everything material. A beautiful home, security, position, freedom to manage the household as I see fit. You have been in every measurable way an exemplary husband. Then why? Because I do not want to be managed like the household, Edmund. Because after 3 years, you still look at me as though I am a stranger. Because we have shared a home, but never shared a single true confidence." Her voice remained calm, but he could hear the hurt beneath it, carefully contained. "Do you know what I do all day? What I think about? What frightens me? What brings me joy?" He wanted to lie, to claim knowledge. He did not possess. But something in her gaze demanded honesty. "No, exactly." She turned back to the roses. "I do not blame you. You did not promise love when you proposed. You promised security and respect, and those things you have delivered faithfully. The fault is mine for wanting more than our agreement specified. Is love something you can demand? Or is it something that must be freely given, grown in the space between two people who choose to see each other truly? What if I want to? No?" The words tumbled out before he could consider them. "What if I am asking now?" Eleanor studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Why? Because I left? Because Captain Sinclair makes you uncomfortable? Because your mother scolded you?" The accuracy of her assessment stung. "Because the house is empty without you. Because I have spent 3 weeks discovering all the ways you made Thornwick Hall a home rather than merely an estate. Because I—" He stopped, the next words dying on his tongue. "Because I what? Because I love you." But did he? Or did he merely love the idea of her, the security of her presence, the convenience of her care? Eleanor saved him from having to finish. "I am not a possession to be reclaimed when you suddenly notice its absence, Edmund. I am a person with thoughts and feelings that exist whether you acknowledge them or not. I know that." "Do you?" She moved away, putting more distance between them. "I have spent 3 years trying to make you see me, really see me. I learned your preferences without you ever learning mine. I accommodated your schedule, your habits, your needs. I managed your home, entertained your guests, supported your position, all while you remained perfectly, impenetrably polite. I thought that was what you wanted. You never complained, you never—" "I should not have to beg for basic human connection from my own husband." The words broke from her with uncharacteristic force, startling them both. Eleanor drew a sharp breath, regaining her composure. "Forgive me, that was inappropriate." "No." Edmund felt something shift inside him, some frozen thing beginning to crack. "No, you should not have to beg. You are right. I have been—" He searched for words adequate to his failure and found none. "I have been a coward." She looked at him in surprise. "I never said—" "My mother did. And she was correct." He moved closer, drawn by a desperate need to make her understand something he barely understood. Himself. "There was someone before you. Her name was Miranda. I was young and foolish and believed myself desperately in love. She accepted my proposal, and then 3 weeks before our wedding, she jilted me for someone with better prospects. It was humiliating, painful, and I vowed never to put myself in that position again." Eleanor's expression softened fractionally. "I knew there had been someone. Your mother mentioned it once, in passing. When I asked you to marry me, I chose you. Precisely because I did not feel that consuming passion. I thought I was being wise, practical, choosing stability over chaos, respect over the dangers of love. He laughed bitterly. What I was actually doing was protecting myself at your expense. I kept you at arm's length because I was afraid, and you have paid the price for my cowardice. The silence that followed was profound. Eleanor wrapped her arms around herself, though the afternoon was warm. Thank you for your honesty. Is it too late? The question came out barely above a whisper. To begin again? To learn to know you as I should have from the start? Eleanor turned to look at him fully, and in her eyes he saw something that made his chest tighten. Not love, not even particular affection, but a deep and weary sadness. I do not know, Edmund, I honestly do not know. Before he could respond, Captain Sinclair appeared at the garden gate, his expression apologetic. Forgive the intrusion, my lady, but we are expected at Lady Morrison's for tea, and she is famously punctual about such matters. Of course. Eleanor moved toward the house without looking back at Edmund. I had forgotten. Edmund, if you will excuse me? Of course. Perhaps I might call again tomorrow? Perhaps. The word was non-committal. Good day, my lord. She left with Captain Sinclair, their heads bent in conversation, leaving Edmund alone among the roses with the taste of failure bitter in his mouth. He called the next day. And the next. And the next. Each time he was received with perfect courtesy and absolute distance. Eleanor granted him brief audiences, walks in the garden, conversations in Lady Philippa's drawing room, but always with her aunt or Captain Sinclair nearby, always brief, always carefully controlled. Edmund found himself learning things about his wife in fragments. She liked strong tea with no sugar. She walked every morning, rain or shine. She had a passionate interest in Gothic architecture. She could recite poetry from memory. She had a dry wit that emerged when she felt comfortable, that made Captain Sinclair laugh and even drew smiles from stern Lady Philippa. And she was different around the captain. Animated. Present. The version of herself that Edmund had glimpsed only rarely, usually when she thought herself unobserved. The jealousy came gradually, then all at once. Edmund told himself it was irrational. Sinclair was a gentleman, Eleanor was a married woman, and nothing in their behavior suggested impropriety. But watching them together, watching Eleanor smile at the captain's stories, watching her lean in to study his sketches of India, watching her become herself in a way she never had with him, was an exquisite torture. Jealousy is a strange teacher, isn't it? It shows us what we fear to lose, what we took for granted, what we were too blind to value when it was freely given. On the fifth day, Edmund arrived at Lady Philippa's to find Eleanor and Sinclair in the drawing room, bent over a large book spread across the table between them. Eleanor was laughing at something the captain had said, her hand resting on his arm in casual familiarity. Something snapped inside Edmund. "Captain Sinclair," he said with forced pleasantness, "I wonder if I might have a private moment with my wife." Sinclair straightened, his expression carefully neutral. "Of course, my lord. Lady Thornwick, I shall return tomorrow with that volume on Muggle gardens we discussed." After the captain departed, Eleanor turned to Edmund with raised eyebrows. That was rather rude. Was it? Edmund found himself pacing, unable to stand still. "Forgive me, but I find it somewhat trying to vie for my own wife's attention with a decorated war hero who seems to have no end of fascinating stories and sketches to share." "Are you jealous?" Eleanor sounded almost amused. "Should I not be? You grant him more warmth in 5 minutes than you have granted me in 3 years of marriage." "Perhaps. Because he listens when I speak. Perhaps because he asks questions about my thoughts rather than assumptions about my duties. Perhaps because he sees me as a person rather than a household fixture." The words struck like blows. Edmund stopped pacing, turning to face her. "That is not fair." "Is it not?" Eleanor rose, her composure finally cracking. "Tell me, Edmund, what have you learned about me in these past 5 days of visits? What do you know now that you did not know when you arrived?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. What did he know? Details, yes, preferences, but did he truly know her? The woman beneath the courtesy, the person she might have been if he had ever bothered to look. "You cannot answer," Eleanor said quietly, "because you are still not truly looking. You see a wife who left and you want her back because her absence inconveniences you. You see another man showing interest and you feel possessive, but you do not see me. That is not... I am tired, Edmund. Tired of explaining myself. Tired of hoping for scraps of attention. Tired of being a problem to be solved, rather than a person to be known. She moved to the window, her back to him. I think you should return to Thornwick Hall. This, whatever you are trying to do, see, it is not working. I can do better. If you would just give me a chance. I gave you 3 years of chances. She whirled to face him, and for the first time, he saw tears in her eyes. Every day I tried. Every conversation I initiated that you deflected. Every small gift of attention I offered that you did not notice. Every night I went to bed in that adjoining chamber, listening through the walls to your movements, wondering if tonight might be the night you would knock on the door, not for duty but because you wanted me, because you chose me. The tears spilled over, and she dashed them away angrily. But you never did, and I cannot keep choosing you when you do not choose me back. It hurts too much. Edmund felt, as though he had been struck. All those years she had been waiting, hoping, trying, and he had been so armored against feeling that he had not noticed her heart breaking quietly on the other side of that connecting door. Eleanor, please go. Her voice was barely audible. Just, please go. He wanted to argue, to stay, to somehow fix this, but the exhaustion in her face, the defeat in her posture, told him that his presence was causing more pain than comfort. Edmund left, and as he walked, through Bath's elegant streets back to his inn, he understood with brutal clarity that he had not merely failed to love his wife, he had failed to let her love him, had pushed away every tentative offering, had built walls so high that she could not reach him even when she tried. Can you break someone's heart through absence, through courtesy, through the steady accumulation of small refusals and unnoticed longings? That night, Edmund sat in his room at the Christopher Inn, staring at the ceiling, while 3 floors below Captain Sinclair probably regaled Eleanor with stories that made her laugh, that made her feel seen, that reminded her what it was like to be valued. And Edmund understood, with the sick certainty of the man who has lost something irreplaceable, that he had no one to blame but himself. Edmund did not return the next day or the day after. He remained in Bath, but stopped calling at Lady Philippa's residence, watching from a distance as Eleanor emerged for her. Morning walks, usually accompanied by Captain Sinclair or her aunt. He told himself he was giving her space, honoring her request for distance. In truth, he was paralyzed by fear. Fear that his next attempt would be the one that drove her away permanently. Fear that he had already destroyed something that could not be repaired. On the 3rd day, he encountered them by chance, or perhaps not by chance, as he had unconsciously chosen to walk the route Eleanor favored. She was with Sinclair, there. Heads bent in conversation as they strolled through Sydney Gardens. Edmund stopped on the path, unable to move forward or retreat, watching as the captain said something that made Eleanor throw her head back in genuine laughter, a sound Edmund realized he had never heard in 3 years of marriage. Something twisted in his chest, a pain that felt physical, that made it difficult to draw breath. Sinclair saw him first. The captain murmured something to Eleanor, who turned, her laughter fading when she recognized her husband standing motionless on the path like a statue of regret. There was a moment of awkward stillness. Then Sinclair, with the social grace of a man accustomed to navigating delicate situations, bowed slightly. Lord Thornwick, a fine afternoon for a walk. Captain, Eleanor. Edmund's voice sounded foreign to his own ears, stiff and formal. Eleanor's face had assumed that familiar mask of polite neutrality. Edmund, I thought you had returned to Thornwick Hall. No. What could he say? That he had been wandering Bath streets like a ghost, unable to leave but equally unable to bridge the chasm between them? I had some matters to attend to in the city. The lie hung in the air, transparent to all of them. Sinclair cleared his throat. Lady Thornwick, perhaps I should leave you to speak with your husband. That is not necessary, Eleanor said quickly, then seemed to realize how that sounded. That is, Edmund, unless there is something specific you need to discuss? Have you ever stood before someone you've hurt and found yourself unable to speak? Found that all the words you rehearsed have fled, leaving only silence? Edmund wanted to say everything. He wanted to tell her that he had spent the past 3 days understanding what it meant to watch someone you care for find joy with another person, to see them become themselves with someone else. He wanted to confess that he had been wrong, not just about their marriage, but about himself, about what he was capable of feeling, about what mattered. But all that emerged was, "No, nothing specific. I merely hoped perhaps we might speak." "We have spoken, Edmund. Several times." Eleanor's voice remained level, but he caught the thread of exhaustion beneath it. "I do not know what more there is to say." "There is everything to say. He glanced at Sinclair, acutely aware of the audience. "Perhaps not here." Eleanor exchanged a look with the captain, some unspoken communication passing. Between them, Edmund felt excluded from that silent conversation, and the exclusion burned like acid. "Very well," Eleanor said finally. "Tomorrow afternoon, at Aunt Philippa's. But, Edmund..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I cannot keep doing this. These conversations that circle without landing. If you have something to say, truly say it. Otherwise, please, let me be." She walked away with Sinclair, leaving Edmund standing alone on the path with the weight of tomorrow pressing on, his chest like a stone. That evening, Edmund dined alone at his inn, pushing food around his plate without appetite. The dining room hummed with conversation from other patrons, families, couples, friends sharing the easy intimacy of people who actually knew one another. Edmund had never felt more alone. A commotion at the entrance drew his attention. Captain Sinclair had entered, still in his walking clothes, scanning the room until his gaze landed on Edmund. The captain's expression was serious. As he crossed to Edmund's table, "Lord Thornwick, might I have a word?" Edmund gestured to the empty chair across from him, bracing himself for confrontation. Instead, Sinclair sat with an air of weary resignation. "I want you to understand something," the captain began without preamble. "I have no designs on your wife, none whatsoever." Edmund raised an eyebrow. "You seem remarkably fond of her company for a man with no designs." "I am fond of her company. She is intelligent, thoughtful, and possesses a sharper wit than most of the vapid society ladies I've been forced to endure since returning to England." Sinclair leaned forward, his voice low. "But she is also deeply unhappy, and I am not such a scoundrel as to take advantage of a woman in that state, particularly not a married woman." "How noble of you." "It is not nobility." Sinclair's jaw tightened. "I watched my sister endure a marriage to a man who did not value her. 10 years she spent trying to be enough for him, trying to win his attention, his affection, his notice. It destroyed her. By the time he died, there was nothing left of the vibrant girl I remembered." He fixed Edmund with a hard stare. "I see the same thing beginning in Eleanor, that dimming of light, that slow erosion of hope, and I will not stand by and watch another woman I care about fade away because her husband is too damned blind to see what he has." The words struck with the force of truth. Edmund felt his hands clench on the table. "What would you have me do?" "I would have you be honest with yourself, if not with her. Do you love your wife? Not the idea of having a wife, not the convenience she provides, not the way she makes your life run smoothly. Her, Eleanor, the woman who reads philosophy, who notices everything, who has more courage in her smallest finger than you've shown in 3 years of marriage. What is love, really? Is it the feeling that makes your heart race? Or is it the choice to see someone fully, to value them, to show up for them even when it's difficult?" Edmund's throat felt tight. "I do not know." "Then you need to figure it out. Quickly." Sinclair rose. "Because I may have no romantic designs on Eleanor, but there are other men in Bath who do. Men who will see what you apparently cannot, that she is extraordinary. Men who will not wait 3 years to pay attention." "Is that a threat?" "It is a warning. From one gentleman to another." Sinclair's expression softened slightly. "I have seen what you cannot yet see, that Eleanor still hopes. Despite everything, she still looks at you with something that might become love if you would give her the smallest reason. But that hope is dying. And once it dies completely, my lord, no amount of belated attention will revive it." The captain left, and Edmund sat in the empty dining room, Sinclair's words echoing in his mind. She still hopes. The thought was simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. He had assumed Eleanor's departure meant she was finished with him, that she had simply given up. But hope implied possibility. Hope implied that there was still something to fight for, if he knew how to fight. Edmund did not sleep that night. Instead, he paced his room, composing and discarding speeches, considering and rejecting approaches. Everything seemed inadequate. How did one apologize for years of negligence? How did one begin to build something that should have been built from the beginning? By dawn, he had reached a decision. Or, rather, he had reached a point of clarity. He could not fix this with words. Eleanor had explicitly asked him to stop the circling conversations, to either truly say something or leave her in peace. But what was there to say that would not sound like empty promises? What words could possibly convey what he barely understood himself? The answer came to him as he watched the sun rise over Bath's honey-colored buildings. He had to show her. Edmund spent the morning making arrangements. He called on Lady Philippa first, catching her before Eleanor woke. "I need your help," he told the older woman without preamble. Lady Philippa regarded him over her teacup. "That is remarkably presumptuous, considering you have given me every reason to dislike you." "I know, but you care about Eleanor and I—" He faltered, then pushed forward. "I am trying to care about her as I should have from the beginning. But I need time. A real conversation, not these brief, stilted exchanges in drawing rooms and gardens. Somewhere she feels safe, where she cannot simply walk away." "You want me to help you trap my niece into a conversation?" Lady Philippa's tone was dry. "I want you to help me give her a reason to choose to stay." Something shifted in the older woman's expression. She studied him for a long moment, then sighed. "There is a folly. In the garden behind Lady Morrison's estate. It is private, secluded, and Eleanor knows it well. We walked there just yesterday. I can arrange for her to be there this afternoon, believing she is meeting me. Whether she chooses to remain when she finds you instead, that will be entirely her decision. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. If you hurt her further, Lord Thornwick, I shall make it my life's mission to ensure your social ruin. Am I understood?" "Perfectly." The Folly was a small neoclassical structure, all white columns and marble benches overlooking an ornamental pond. Edmund arrived early, his heart hammering, every nerve alive with anxiety. He had no plan beyond this: to stop performing, stop defending, stop making excuses, to simply be honest, whatever that meant, whatever it cost. Eleanor appeared at precisely 3 o'clock, walking through the garden with a book tucked under her arm. She wore a simple day dress of pale green that brought out the subtle color in her eyes, her hair arranged in a style he had never seen before, less severe, softer. She looked younger, somehow. Or perhaps she had always looked like this, and he had simply never paid attention. She stopped when she saw him, her expression shifting from surprise to wariness to something that might have been resignation. "Aunt Philippa is not coming, is she?" "No." Edmund stood, feeling awkward and exposed. "I asked for her help. I needed to speak with you, and you asked me to truly say something, so I am trying." Eleanor remained at the entrance to the Folly, not approaching. "You ambushed me. I arranged circumstances for a conversation you might not have agreed to otherwise. I am desperate, Eleanor. I do not know how else to reach you." She was quiet for a long moment, then moved to the opposite side of the Folly, putting the width of the structure between them. "Very well. Speak." Edmund realized he was trembling. When had he last felt truly afraid? Probably not since he was a boy, facing his father's disappointment over some childhood failure. But this was different. This was the terror of standing before someone you had wronged and trying to find words adequate to your failures. "I do not know how to do this," he admitted. "I have spent most of my adult life perfecting the art of not feeling too much, of maintaining proper distance, of being correct rather than honest. And now I stand before you trying to be honest, and I am making a hash of it. Just speak, Edmund. No performance. No pretty speeches. Just truth." He took a breath. "The truth is that I have been a coward. You said it before, and I denied it. But it is accurate. I was hurt once badly, and I vowed never to be vulnerable again. When I married you, I thought I was being wise, choosing with my head rather than my heart. But what I was actually doing was using you as a shield, keeping you close enough to fulfill social expectations, but far enough that you could never truly touch me." Eleanor said nothing, but she was listening. He could see it in the slight tilt of her head, the way her fingers tightened on the book she still held. I told myself I was protecting both of us from the chaos of emotion. I convinced myself that our civilized arrangement was superior to the messiness of passion, but I was really only protecting myself. And in doing so, I hurt you. Deeply. Consistently. For 3 years. Sometimes the hardest truth to speak is not about what we've done, but about who we've been. About the ways we've chosen safety over courage, distance over connection. I did not understand, Edmund continued, how lonely you were. How much effort you put into trying to reach me. How many small offerings I rejected or did not even notice. The house is full of evidence of your care. Flowers arranged just so, my preferences attended to, problems solved before I knew they existed. You saw me, Eleanor, you paid attention, and I... His voice broke slightly. I did not return the favor. Eleanor's eyes had filled with tears, though her expression remained controlled. Why now, Edmund? Why this admission now when I have finally found the courage to leave? Because I finally understand what I am losing. Because watching you with Sinclair, seeing you become yourself with him, showed me what I failed to be for you. Because you are jealous. Yes, the admission cost him, but it was true. Yes, I am jealous, but not for the reasons you think, or not only for those reasons. I am jealous that he saw you in weeks what I failed to see in years. I am jealous that you feel comfortable being yourself with him. I am jealous that he makes you laugh in a way I never have. He moved around the perimeter of the folly, though still maintaining distance. But more than jealousy, I feel loss, profound loss, as though I have been walking past a masterpiece every day, dismissing it as mere decoration, and then one day it was gone, and I finally understood what I had missed. Eleanor's tears were falling freely now, though she made no sound. That is a beautiful metaphor, Edmund. But I am not a masterpiece. I am a person who needed to be loved, not appreciated from a distance. I know, and I do not have the right to ask for another chance. I have squandered every chance you have given me, but he faltered, searching for words. I want to try. Not to win you back like a prize, not to reclaim a possession, but to actually know you, to learn who you are, what you think, what you need, to start over, if you will allow it. Start over, Eleanor repeated, her voice hollow. Edmund, we cannot start over. We have 3 years of history, 3 years of disappointment and loneliness, and walls built between us. You cannot simply wish that away with pretty words. I know, but perhaps we can start from where we are, with honesty instead of courtesy, with actual conversation instead of polite distance. Eleanor shook her head slowly. You say these things, but how do I know you mean them? How do I know that if I return to Thornwick Hall, you will not slip back into your comfortable patterns? That you will not decide this effort is too much trouble and retreat behind your walls again? The question was fair. What guarantee could he offer? What proof did he have that he could actually change patterns established over decades? I cannot give you guarantees, Edmund said quietly. I can only offer you my word that I will try, that I will show up, that I will pay attention, that I will... Your word? Eleanor's voice rose, and suddenly the careful control she had maintained throughout this conversation shattered. Your word? Edmund, I have lived with your word. You gave me your word on our wedding day, to honor me, to cherish me, and instead, you tolerated me. You honored the idea of a wife while ignoring the reality of the woman. She was moving now, pacing like a caged animal, all the pent-up frustration of 3 years pouring out. Do you know what it is like to live with someone who treats you with such perfect courtesy? It is suffocating. I would have preferred anger, arguments, anything that showed you cared enough to feel something genuine. But instead, you gave me politeness, distance, as though I were a particularly efficient servant rather than your wife. Eleanor, no. You wanted honesty? Here is honesty. I am tired of being the reasonable one. I am tired of making excuses for you, of telling myself that your reserve is simply your nature, that I should not expect warmth from a man who clearly values control over connection. I am tired of hoping that tomorrow will be the day you finally see me. She turned to face him fully, and the anguish in her face made Edmund's chest tighten. "I loved you. Did you know that? I loved you before we married, had harbored feelings for you since we first met at that dinner party 2 years before our engagement. When you proposed, I thought my hopes had been answered. I thought perhaps you felt something too, even if you did not express it easily." Edmund felt as though the ground was tilting beneath him. "I did not know. How could you? You never asked. You never looked closely enough to see it." Eleanor wiped at her tears with angry gestures. "I loved you, and I spent 3 years dying slowly inside that perfect, courtesy-filled marriage. And now you appear with apologies and promises, and I am supposed to… what? Forget the pain? Pretend it does not matter? Risk my heart again on the chance that you might actually mean what you say? This time?" The rawness of her pain hit Edmund with the force of a physical blow. All this time, while he had been protecting himself from feeling too much, Eleanor had been feeling everything. Loving him, hoping for him, being slowly broken by his neglect. "I did not know," he repeated, his voice rough. "Eleanor, I did not know you felt. I thought our arrangement was mutually satisfactory. You thought what was convenient for you. You thought what allowed you to maintain your comfortable distance. You never thought about what I might need, what I might be feeling, because you never asked." She was right. About all of it. Edmund felt the truth of her words like knives, each one precise and deserved. "You are right." The admission came out barely above a whisper. "You are absolutely right. And I have no defense except my own cowardice. I was so afraid of being hurt again that I hurt you instead. I am…" He struggled for words adequate to his shame. "I am profoundly… sorry, more sorry than I can express. Sorry is not enough." Eleanor's voice had gone quiet again, and somehow that was worse than her anger. "Sorry does not undo 3 years. Sorry does not heal a heart you systematically broke through indifference. I know, but it is all I have to offer, that and a promise, no, not a promise, an intention, to do better, to be better, to actually try to become the husband you deserved from the beginning." Eleanor was silent for a long moment, staring out at the ornamental pond. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the water, and somewhere nearby a bird sang, the sound almost mocking in its cheerfulness. "I cannot come back," Eleanor said finally. "Not now, not yet, perhaps not ever. I need…" She turned to look at him, and her expression was desolate. "I need to rediscover who I am, when I am not trying to be enough for you. I need to remember what it feels like to laugh without wondering if it is too loud, to speak without measuring every word, to simply exist without performing." The rejection, though delivered gently, landed with crushing force. Edmund had come here hoping for… what? Forgiveness, reconciliation, some miraculous solution. But of course there was no easy answer. Of course the damage he had done could not be repaired with one conversation, no matter how honest. "I understand," he managed. "Do you?" Eleanor studied him. "I wonder. I think you understand intellectually that you have hurt me, but I am not certain. You truly grasp the depth of that hurt, or what it will take to heal it, if it can be healed at all." She moved toward the entrance of the folly, preparing to leave. Edmund felt panic rise in his chest. "Eleanor, please, tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix this." She paused, looking back at him. "I cannot tell you that, Edmund, because fixing this, if it can be fixed, requires you to do the work of actually becoming someone capable of emotional intimacy, of opening yourself to feeling, even when it is uncomfortable, of choosing vulnerability over safety. I cannot teach you how to do that. You have to decide if you want it enough to take the risk. I do want it. You want me back. But do you want to change? Truly change, not just perform the actions you think will win me back, but actually transform into someone capable of the kind of partnership I need?" She shook her head. "I do not know if you can. And Edmund, I do not know if I can survive watching you fail." She left. Then, walking back through the garden with the book still tucked under her arm, her posture straight, despite the tears still tracking down her face. Edmund stood alone in the folly as the sun lowered toward the horizon, feeling something inside him break open, not with the sudden violence of a blow, but with the slow, inexorable crack of ice thawing after a long winter. He had come to Bath thinking he could reason his way back into Eleanor's good graces. He had thought apologies would be enough, or promises or demonstrations of his realization of her value. But he had been thinking of this as a problem to solve, a situation to manage. Eleanor did not need management. She needed transformation. And transformation, Edmund was beginning to understand, was terrifying. Can we change? Truly change? Not just modify our behavior, but alter the fundamental ways we relate to others, to ourselves. And if change requires us to confront the parts of ourselves we have spent years building walls to hide, is it worth the risk? Edmund walked back to his inn as dusk gathered, and for the first time in days he did not imagine following Eleanor, did not plan his next attempt to speak with her. Instead, he thought about the man he had been, the boy who had learned early that emotion was weakness, that vulnerability invited pain, the young man whose heart had been broken and who had responded by building impenetrable defenses, the husband who had valued safety over connection, and he thought about the man Eleanor needed him to become, someone capable of seeing her, of truly knowing her, of risking his heart despite all the dangers that entailed. The distance between those two men, who he was and who he needed to be, felt vast as an ocean. But perhaps, Edmund thought as he climbed the stairs to his lonely room, perhaps the first step was simply admitting that distance existed. Perhaps change began with that acknowledgement. I am not yet who I need to be, but I can choose to become that person, if it was not too late. If Eleanor's hope, that dying hope Sinclair had warned him about, could be revived, if, the word hung in his mind like a prayer, like a plea, like the first tentative light of uncertain dawn. Edmund did not leave Bath. He stopped calling on Lady Philippa's residence, stopped arranging chance encounters, stopped trying to force conversations Eleanor clearly did not want. Instead, he remained, a quiet presence in the city, neither pursuing nor abandoning, simply present, waiting for something he could not name. He took a small set of rooms on Laura Place, rented for an indefinite period, despite the landlady's puzzlement that an earl would choose such modest lodgings. The rooms suited him, sparse, functional, stripped of the pretensions that usually surrounded his life. Here he could think without the weight of his title, his position, his carefully constructed identity pressing down on him. He began to write, not to Eleanor. He had learned that lesson, at least, but to himself. Long, meandering journal entries that attempted to trace the architecture of his own heart, to map the defensive walls he had built, and understand when and why each had been erected. I was 8 when my father told me that heartly men do not cry. I had fallen from a horse, broken my arm, and the pain was extraordinary. But father's disapproval when he saw my tears was somehow worse than the physical hurt. I learned to swallow pain that day, to hold it inside where no one could see it and judge me weak. I was 16 when mother explained that a gentleman's emotions are a private matter, never to be displayed in public or even within the family, except in the most controlled circumstances. Sentiment, she said, was acceptable in women but unbecoming in men of our class. I was 24 when Miranda rejected me, and the humiliation of having offered my heart so completely, so publicly, only to have it dismissed, taught me that love was a liability. That opening yourself to another person gave them the power to destroy you. And so I learned to love nothing, to care for nothing deeply enough that its loss could wound me. I thought I was protecting myself. I did not realize I was simply becoming hollow. The words poured out, days of writing, filling page after page with brutal self-examination. Edmund had spent years avoiding such introspection, dismissing it as self-indulgent navel-gazing. But now, forced into stillness, he found that looking clearly at himself was perhaps the hardest thing he had ever done. When did you last truly examine yourself? Not the person you present to the world, but the frightened, flawed, struggling self you hide even from your own awareness. He also read everything he could find about marriage, about relationships, about the kind of partnership Eleanor had asked for, and he had failed to provide. Gothic novels that Eleanor loved, trying to understand what moved her. Philosophy texts that challenged his assumptions about reason and emotion. Poetry that made him uncomfortable with its raw feeling. And slowly, painfully, Edmund began to understand something. He had confused emotional control with strength, had thought that by feeling less, he was somehow more disciplined, more admirable. But the writers he read spoke of something else entirely. That true strength lay in allowing yourself to feel deeply while still maintaining integrity. That vulnerability was not weakness, but courage. Eleanor had shown that courage every day of their marriage. She had chosen to love him despite his coldness, had continued trying to reach him even as he rebuffed her efforts. She had been brave in ways he had entirely failed to recognize, while he had been safe, protected, and utterly, devastatingly alone. 3 weeks into his vigil, Edmund encountered Eleanor by accident. True accident this time. He was leaving a bookshop on Milsom Street just as she was entering, and they nearly collided in the doorway. "Edmund?" She stepped back, startled. "Eleanor, forgive me, I did not see you." They stood in awkward silence, neither quite willing to move first. Edmund took the opportunity to truly look at her. She appeared well, better than well. There was color in her cheeks, a clarity in her eyes that suggested she was sleeping better, feeling lighter. The absence of his presence in her daily life seemed to agree with her. The realization stung, but it also carried a strange relief. She was not withering in his absence. She was thriving. "I heard you had remained in Bath," Eleanor said finally. "Aunt Philippa mentioned you had taken rooms." "Yes, I hope that does not trouble you." "It puzzles me more than troubles me." She tilted her head, studying him with that clear gaze he had once found unsettling, and now found himself craving. "Why stay, Edmund? We have had our conversations. I have given you my answer. What purpose does remaining serve?" Edmund considered his response carefully. "I am not staying to pursue you. If that is your concern, you may set it aside. I am staying because—" He paused, searching for honesty. "Because leaving feels like giving up, and I have given up on too much in my life already. I thought perhaps I might stay and simply try to become someone worthy of a second chance should you ever choose to offer one." Eleanor's expression was unreadable. "That seems rather pointless if I have already told you I am not ready to return." "Perhaps, but I have spent 3 years making choices based on convenience and comfort. I thought I might try making one based on something else." "Based on what?" "Hope." The word felt vulnerable on his tongue, dangerous in a way he was not accustomed to. Irrational? Perhaps futile hope, but hope nonetheless. Something flickered in Eleanor's eyes, surprise perhaps, or the ghost of something warmer, but it passed quickly, and her polite mask returned. "I must go. Aunt Philippa is expecting me." She moved to step around him, then paused. "Edmund, I do not wish to be cruel, but you should know that Captain Sinclair has asked me to accompany him to London next month, to meet his family, to see the city together. I have accepted." The words struck like a blow, but Edmund kept his expression neutral. "I see. I hope you enjoy the visit. I am telling you so that you understand the situation clearly, so that you do not harbor expectations that cannot be met. I understand. Thank you for your honesty." Eleanor studied him for a moment longer, as though waiting for some emotional outburst, some demand or plea. When none came, she nodded and continued into the shop, leaving Edmund standing on the street with his newly purchased books and the taste of ash in his mouth. How do you watch someone you love? And yes, he was beginning to understand that what he felt was love. Make choices that take them further from you. How do you support their happiness, even when it means your own heartbreak? Edmund walked back to his rooms in a daze. Captain Sinclair. Of course. The man was everything Edmund was not. Open, engaging, capable of connecting with people easily. And Eleanor clearly enjoyed his company, felt comfortable with him in ways she had never managed with her own husband. Edmund should be angry, should be jealous, should feel betrayed. Instead, he felt nothing, or not nothing, but something too complex to name. Sadness, certainly. Loss. But underneath those expected emotions, something else. Something that might have been acceptance, or the beginnings of it. If Eleanor found happiness with Sinclair or with anyone else, was that not better than her returning to a marriage that had brought her nothing but loneliness? Did loving someone not mean wanting their well-being, even if that well-being did not include you? The thought was radical, revolutionary, entirely foreign to everything Edmund had been taught about marriage, property, a husband's rights. But sitting in his sparse rooms, that evening, He found himself turning it over in his mind like a strange new jewel, examining it from all angles. Perhaps this was what Eleanor had meant about transformation, not just changing his behavior toward her, but changing his fundamental understanding of what it meant to love someone, letting go of possession, of entitlement, of the assumption that because you wanted something, you had the right to it. Learning, perhaps, to love without demanding anything in return. The next weeks were a study in quiet endurance. Edmund maintained his routines, writing in the mornings, walking in the afternoons, reading in the evenings. He attended no social events, made no calls, existed in a self-imposed exile that was both punishment and sanctuary. He saw Eleanor occasionally, always at a distance, walking in Sydney Gardens with Captain Sinclair, emerging from the pump room with Lady Philippa, once laughing at something in a shop window, looking so carefree that Edmund's chest ached. With the beauty of it, he did not approach her, did not try to insert himself into her new life, simply watched and learned and tried to reconcile himself to the possibility that she was lost to him. Letting go is not the same as giving up, is it? Sometimes loving someone means stepping back, allowing them space to flourish even if that flourishing happens without you. On a grey morning in early June, nearly 6 weeks into his Bath sojourn, Edmund received an unexpected visitor. Captain. Sinclair appeared at his door, his expression serious. "Captain, this is unexpected." Edmund stepped aside to allow the man entry, though the visit filled him with dread. Had Sinclair come to gloat, to warn him off, to announce an engagement? "I apologize for the intrusion, my lord, but I felt we should speak." Sinclair accepted the offered chair, though he sat with the rigid posture of a man uncomfortable with his errand. "I understand you know that Lady Thornwick will be accompanying me to London." "She mentioned it, yes. I want to be clear about the nature of that visit." Sinclair met Edmund's gaze directly. "It is not romantic. I have offered Eleanor friendship, companionship, someone to talk with who sees her as more than a decorative object. But I have not offered, nor will I offer anything beyond that." Edmund felt something in his chest loosen fractionally. "May I ask why you are telling me this?" "Because despite everything, Eleanor still speaks of you. Not often, and never without pain, but she speaks of you nonetheless. She is torn, Lord Thornwick, between the hurt you caused and the hope, that damned hope I mentioned before, that perhaps you might actually change." "I am trying to change." "I know. I have been watching." Sinclair leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Do you know what I see? A man who has stopped performing, who has withdrawn not out of defeat, but out of respect for her wishes, who asks nothing while offering everything. It is unusual, and it is beginning to affect her." "Affect her how?" "She is conflicted, confused. She came to Bath to escape you, to find clarity, and instead you have remained, not pursuing, not demanding, simply present. It undermines her certainty, makes her question whether she was right to leave, whether there might be a chance for reconciliation." Edmund's heart was beating faster now. "Is that why you have come? To tell me this?" "I have come to tell you that I am removing myself from the equation." Sinclair stood, beginning to pace in the small room. "My sister's husband died last week. I received word this morning. I must return to London immediately to help settle his affairs and support her. Eleanor will remain in Bath with her aunt. I am sorry for your loss." "Thank you." Sinclair paused, fixing Edmund with a serious look. "Before I leave, I need to know, are you genuine? Is this transformation real, or are you simply waiting for the right moment to slip back into old patterns? Because if you hurt her again, Lord Thornwick, I will make it my personal mission to ensure everyone in London knows exactly what kind of husband you are." The threat should have angered Edmund. Instead, he found himself respecting the captain more for it. "It is genuine, or I am trying to make it genuine. I cannot promise I will not fail. I am certain I will, in fact. But I can promise I will keep trying, that I will not stop trying." Sinclair studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "That may be enough, or it may not, but it is more than you offered before." After the captain departed, Edmund sat in silence, processing this new development. Eleanor would remain in Bath, but without Sinclair's presence as a buffer. Would she be more open to conversation now? Or would she withdraw further, fearing Edmund might take advantage of her companion's absence? There was only one way to know, and it required the thing Edmund found hardest: patience, waiting without expectation, being available without being intrusive, demonstrating through action rather than words that his transformation was real. He returned to his writing, his reading, his quiet vigil. But now, alongside the exercises in self-examination, he added something new: gratitude, for each day, for the chance to become better, for the fact that Eleanor was in the world, even if she was not in his life. It was a small shift, but it felt significant, moving from grasping to grateful, from demanding to appreciating, from trying to possess to simply honoring her existence. Gratitude transforms everything, doesn't it? When we stop focusing on what we lack and start acknowledging what we have, even if it's only the chance to try again, the whole world shifts. 3 days after Sinclair's departure, Edmund received a note. It was brief, written in Eleanor's familiar hand. "Edmund, I understand you are still in Bath. I find myself with questions that perhaps only you can answer. Would you be willing to meet the Folly tomorrow afternoon at 3? Edmund read the note until he had memorized every word, every loop of her pen, every implication. She wanted to meet. She had questions. And she had signed it simply E. Not Lady Thornwick, not Eleanor Hartley. Just that single initial that felt oddly intimate. He would go, of course, but this time he would go without agendas, without strategies. He would simply show up and be honest, whatever that meant, whatever it cost. The house had fallen quiet at dawn, and Edmund had begun to understand she had left. But perhaps, just perhaps, the story did not end there. The Folly looked different in the afternoon light, softer somehow, less like a stage set for dramatic confrontations, and more like simply a peaceful place. Edmund arrived early, his heart hammering despite his determination to remain calm. He had spent the morning in prayer, not something he did often, but he found himself reaching for something beyond himself, some strength he did not possess on his own. Please, he had thought, looking up at the ceiling of his rooms, please let me be enough. Or if I cannot be enough, let me at least be honest. Eleanor appeared precisely at 3, walking through the garden with that grace he had come to recognize as distinctly hers. She wore a dress of pale blue, her hair arranged simply, and she looked tired. Not ill, but as though she had not been sleeping well, as though the weight of decision pressed on her. "Edmund," she greeted him, with a slight nod, formal but not hostile. "Eleanor, thank you for agreeing to meet. You have been very patient. I thought the least I could do was hear what you wished to say." She took a seat on one of the marble benches, arranging her skirts with careful precision. "Though I confess I am not entirely certain what we still have to discuss." Edmund remained standing, too nervous to sit. "You mentioned questions." "Yes." Eleanor looked out at the pond, avoiding his gaze. "Captain Sinclair has departed for London. He told me before he left that he spoke with you." "He did. He said—" She paused, choosing words carefully. "He said you have been different, that you have shown patience and respect for my wishes, that you have not pressed your suit or made demands. He seemed impressed, which surprised me." Edmund said nothing, waiting for her to continue. "I find myself questioning my own certainty," Eleanor admitted. "When I left Thornwick Hall, I was certain it was the right choice. Certain that our marriage was irreparable. Certain that I would be better off alone than continuing in a union that brought me only loneliness." She finally looked at him. "But these past weeks have shaken that certainty. Not because you have done anything to win me back, but precisely because you have not. Because you have simply been present, without demanding anything. And I do not know what to make of it." "What would you like to make of it?" Edmund asked softly. "I would like to understand if it is real. If this patience, this apparent change is genuine or simply a new strategy." Her grey eyes were searching, desperate for truth. "Tell me, Edmund, what have you been doing these past weeks? Why have you stayed in Bath?" Edmund took a breath, then sat on the opposite bench, careful to maintain respectful distance. "I have been trying to understand myself, to examine why I became the kind of man who could hurt you so thoroughly without even realizing it, to trace the walls. I built and understand when and why I built them. And what have you learned? That I was afraid. The admission came more easily than he expected. That I confused emotional control with strength. That I thought if I did not allow myself to feel too deeply, I could not be hurt too profoundly. But in protecting myself, I hurt the one person I should have protected above all others. Eleanor's expression softened fractionally. That is a beginning, I suppose. It is more than a beginning. It is an entire architecture of self-deception that I have been dismantling stone by stone. He leaned forward, his hands clasped between his knees. Eleanor, I cannot promise I will transform overnight into the husband you deserve. I have 34 years of habits to undo, patterns so deeply ingrained I sometimes do not even recognize them. But I can promise I will keep trying, that I will notice when I fail and choose to do better, that I will show up even when it is difficult, even when every instinct tells me to retreat into safety. Why? The question was almost a whisper. Why now? Why not 3 years ago when we married, or 2 years ago when I was still hoping, or even a year ago when I was beginning to despair? Why wait until I left to finally begin this work? It was the most important question she could have asked, and it deserved the most honest answer he could give. Because I did not understand what I had, because I thought your quiet presence was simply your nature, rather than evidence of your own pain. Because, he paused, searching for the right words, because sometimes we are so defended against our own feelings that we cannot see anyone else's, and it took losing you to break through those defenses. Is loss necessary for transformation? Must we lose something before we truly appreciate what we had? Or can we learn to see clearly while the gift is still present? Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, and Edmund could almost see the thoughts moving. Behind her eyes, weighing his words against 3 years of experience, measuring the possibility of change against the certainty of past hurt. I believe you mean what you say, she said finally. In this moment, sitting here, I believe your intentions are genuine. But Edmund, intentions are not enough. I have lived with your intentions before. You intended to be a good husband. You intended to honor me. But your actions, she shook her head. Your actions told a different story. You are right. And I have no defense except to say that I did not know how to bridge the gap between intention and action. I do not know that I know how even now, but I am learning. How? The question was direct, challenging. How are you learning? What tangible things are you doing differently? Edmund had anticipated this question or questions like it and had thought through his answer carefully. I have been writing. Journals, reflections, attempting to map my own emotional landscape. I have been reading books you love, trying to understand what moves you. Books about marriage and partnership, trying to understand what I failed to provide. I have been seeking counsel from... He paused, then continued honestly. From a vicar here in Bath who specializes in pastoral care. I have been talking with him about patterns of emotional avoidance, about learning to be vulnerable. Eleanor's eyebrows rose. You have been consulting a clergyman? About emotions? It seemed prudent, since I clearly cannot navigate this territory alone. Edmund allowed himself a small, self-deprecating smile. He has been remarkably patient with me, even when I resist his suggestions or revert to my old certainties. He says, change is not linear, that I should expect failures and setbacks, and that those failures do not invalidate the progress. Something in Eleanor's expression shifted, though Edmund could not quite read it. That is more than I expected. Is it enough? I do not know, she said, honestly. Edmund, I want to believe you. I want to believe that people can change, that marriages can be healed, that hope is not foolish. But I am afraid, terrified actually, of believing and being disappointed again, of returning to Thornwick Hall and discovering that Bath was an anomaly, that once you are back in your familiar environment, you will slip back into old patterns. Edmund felt his throat tighten. That is a reasonable fear. I cannot promise it will not happen, but I can promise that if it does, when it does, because I am certain I will fail sometimes, I will acknowledge it. I will not deny your reality or your feelings. I will not gaslight you into thinking your perceptions are wrong. I will listen, apologize genuinely, and work to do better. Those are words, Edmund. Beautiful, convincing words. But after 3 years of perfectly courteous words that meant nothing, forgive me if I need more. What do you need? Edmund asked desperately. Tell me. Anything. I will do. Eleanor stood, moving to the edge of the folly, looking out at the garden. I need... She paused, and Edmund could see her struggling with something. I need to know who you are. Not the Earl, not the man performing the role of concerned husband, but you. The person underneath all the titles and pretensions, the man who is afraid, who has been hurt, who made these walls for reasons I can understand even if I cannot accept them. I do not know if I know who that is, Edmund admitted. I have been playing roles for so long that I am not certain there is a real person underneath or just layers of performance. Then find him. Eleanor turned to face him, and her expression was intense. Because I cannot build a marriage with a performance, Edmund. I need a partner, a real human being with flaws and fears, and the courage to show them to me. Can you be that person? The question hung in the air between them, immense in its implications. Could he? Could he shed the armor of propriety and courtesy and control and allow Eleanor to see the frightened, flawed, uncertain man beneath? The thought was terrifying. It was also, Edmund realized, necessary. I can try, he said quietly, and perhaps that is all I can promise. Not that I will succeed perfectly, but that I will keep trying, that I will choose vulnerability over safety, even when every instinct screams at me to retreat. Vulnerability is the portal to connection. We must risk being truly seen, with all our imperfections and uncertainties, if we hope to be truly known. Eleanor studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, to his surprise, she laughed, a soft, slightly bitter sound. Do you know what is absurd? Even after everything, part of me still loves you. Despite the loneliness, despite the hurt, despite 3 years of disappointment, some foolish part of my heart still hopes. The admission struck Edmund like lightning. You still... Yes. She met his gaze directly. Which makes me either remarkably loyal or remarkably stupid. I have not yet decided which. Edmund rose, moving toward her with tentative steps, as though approaching a deer that might bolt at any sudden movement. Eleanor, The words caught in his throat, 3 years of emotional constipation making even this simple declaration difficult. But he forced them out, pushed past the fear and the habit and the ingrained resistance. I love you. The words felt strange on his tongue, vulnerable and exposed. He had not said them on their wedding day, had not said them in 3 years of marriage. Saying them now, with everything uncertain and nothing guaranteed, felt like standing naked in a public square. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. Do you? Or do you love the idea of me? The convenient, efficient countess who managed your household and made no emotional demands? I love you, Edmund repeated, with more certainty this time. The woman who noticed which tenant farmers needed help. The woman who redesigned the gardens because she saw beauty I had overlooked. The woman who learned my preferences without me ever learning hers. The woman who tried for 3 years to reach a man too defended to be reached. The woman who had the courage to leave when staying would have been easier. You, Eleanor, I love you. The tears were streaming down her face now. That may be the first entirely honest thing you have ever said to me. Then let it be the first of many. He reached out, slowly, giving her every opportunity to withdraw, and took her hands in his. They were trembling, both of their hands trembling together. I do not know how to do this, Eleanor. I do not know how to be vulnerable or emotionally open or any of the things you need, but I am willing to learn. If you will teach me, if you will be patient with my failures and celebrate my small successes and help me become someone worthy of your love. Edmund, she was weeping openly now, and Edmund felt his own, eyes prickling with tears he had not shed in decades. I cannot come back immediately. I need more time. I need to see that this is sustainable, that you can maintain this openness, even when it is difficult. I understand. But, she squeezed his hands, and the gesture felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. But perhaps we could begin. Not as husband and wife returning to old patterns, but as 2 people learning to truly know each other for the first time. Could we do that? Yes. The word came out thick with emotion. Yes, we could do that. Then let us begin simply. Tell me something true, something you have never told me before, something that frightens you to say." Edmund took a shaky breath, every defensive instinct screaming at him to deflect, to retreat, to protect himself. But he had promised vulnerability, and vulnerability meant risk. "I am terrified," he said quietly, "that I will fail you again. That despite my best efforts, I will revert to my old patterns and hurt you anew. I am terrified that I am fundamentally incapable of the kind of emotional intimacy you need, and I am even more terrified that if I fail, I will lose you permanently, and I will spend the rest of my life regretting that I finally learned to love when it was too late to matter." Eleanor's grip on his hands tightened. "That is quite a confession. You asked for truth." "I did." She smiled through her tears, a watery but genuine expression that transformed her face. "Very well. Here is my truth. I am terrified that if I allow myself to hope again, to believe that our marriage can be different, I will be crushed when those hopes are disappointed. I am terrified that I am being foolish, that my desire for this to work will blind me to reality. And I am terrified that even if you manage to change, I may discover that I have changed too, that the woman I am becoming no longer fits with the man you are becoming. Those are reasonable fears." "Yes. So where does that leave us?" Two terrified people, both afraid of failing, both uncertain of success. Edmund considered the question, then found himself smiling, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "It leaves us honest, for perhaps the first time. And honesty, I am learning, is the foundation of everything else." They stood in the folly as afternoon slid toward evening, still holding hands, still afraid but less alone in their fear. Outside, the garden was alive with the sounds of approaching summer, birds settling into evening song, insects beginning their twilight chorus, the rustle of leaves in a gentle breeze. "What happens now?" Edmund asked after a long silence. "Now," Eleanor seemed to consider, "now we begin, slowly, with patience and honesty and no expectations beyond simply learning to see each other clearly. I will remain here in Bath for now, but perhaps you could visit? Real visits, not those stilted drawing room conversations. Walks where we actually talk. Meals where we share more than pleasantries. I would like that." Edmund felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest, hope perhaps, but also something simpler, relief. The relief of finally being seen, of finally allowing himself to be seen. "And Edmund?" Eleanor's voice was soft. "When you fail, and you will fail sometimes, as will I, we must promise to talk about it, to address it honestly rather than letting resentment accumulate. Can you do that?" "I will try. It will be difficult. My instinct is to withdraw, to avoid conflict, to pretend everything is fine even when it is not." "I know, which is why we must agree to it now, while we are both clear-headed and hopeful. When things become difficult, we will return to this moment, this agreement. We will face problems together rather than letting them divide us. The foundation of lasting love is not perfection, but the commitment to work through imperfection together, to return to each other again and again, even after failures and misunderstandings." They talked as the light faded, slowly releasing their hands but moving to sit side by side on the marble bench, close but not touching, present to each other in a way they had never been before. Edmund told her about his conversations with the vicar, about the journals he had been keeping, about the slow, painful work of excavating his own emotional landscape. Eleanor told him about her weeks in Bath, about the relief of living without constant performance, about discovering parts of herself she had suppressed during their marriage. She spoke honestly about her growing friendship with Captain Sinclair, and Edmund found he could listen without jealousy, could appreciate that the captain had offered Eleanor something Edmund had failed to provide. "I am grateful to him," Edmund said, and meant it. "He saw you when I did not. He reminded you that you deserve to be valued. Even if his presence made me insane with jealousy, I am grateful." Eleanor laughed, a real laugh this time, warm and surprised. "That may be the most mature thing you have ever said. I am trying to grow up. At 34, it seems rather overdue." They parted as full dark settled over the garden with a plan to meet again in 2 days' time. No grand promises, no dramatic declarations, just an agreement to see each other again, to continue this tentative beginning. As Edmund walked back to his rooms, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. Not because everything was resolved, it was not. Not because Eleanor had promised to return, she had not. But because for the first time they had met as themselves without pretense or performance. And in that authentic meeting, something new had become possible. The weeks that followed established a new rhythm. Edmund and Eleanor met regularly, walks through Sydney Gardens, quiet meals at Lady Philippa's home, even an afternoon at the theatre where they sat side by side and discussed the performance afterward like two people discovering shared interests. They talked, truly talked, about everything and nothing. Edmund learned that Eleanor had always wanted to travel, to see places beyond England's shores, that she had a particular fascination with ancient Rome and had taught herself Latin simply to read Marcus Aurelius in the original, that she feared storms because she had nearly drowned as a child, that her mother's death when Eleanor was 15 had left a wound that had never fully healed. Eleanor learned that Edmund played the violin, but had stopped, after his father declared it an unmanly pursuit, that he had wanted to study philosophy at university, but had been forced into estate management instead, that his carefully controlled exterior hid a mind constantly questioning, analyzing, doubting itself, that he wrote poetry, sometimes terrible poetry he had never shown anyone, but the act of writing helped him process feelings he could not otherwise express. They learned, in short, to know each other, and in knowing, something remarkable happened. They began to like each other. "Tell me something," Eleanor said one afternoon as they sat by the River Avon, watching boats drift past. "When did you decide you loved me? Was it before I left or after?" Edmund considered the question carefully. "I do not know that there was a single moment of decision, but I think—" He paused, reaching for precision. "I think I have been loving you in pieces for years, without realizing it, noticing small things, the way you hummed when you thought you were alone, the kindness in how you spoke to the servants, the care you took with the estate. But I was so defended against feeling that I interpreted these noticings as mere observation, appreciation for a job well done, rather than love. And now I understand that love is made of those small noticings, that it is built from attention and care and the choice to see someone fully. I did not fall in love with you suddenly. I grew into it slowly, while refusing to acknowledge what was growing." Eleanor was quiet for a moment, watching the river. "I fell in love with you at a dinner party 2 years before we married. You were arguing with Lord Ashford about agricultural reform, and you were so passionate, so genuinely engaged with ideas rather than simply performing social pleasantries. I thought then that beneath your reserve there must be depths worth knowing. And when you proposed, I believed I would finally have the chance to know those depths. But I never let you." "No. You retreated into performance, and she sighed. "I did not know how to reach past it. I should have been more direct, more demanding. But I was taught that a lady waits, that she does not push or insist or make herself inconvenient. How much pain could be avoided if we simply spoke our needs clearly, if we refused the roles society assigns and instead chose authentic communication. We have both made mistakes," Edmund said. "The question is whether we can learn from them. Can we?" Eleanor turned to look at him directly. "Honestly, Edmund, not what you hope but what you truly believe. Can we build something new from these ruins?" He met her gaze, refusing to look away, even though his instinct was to deflect. "I do not know, but I know that I am different than I was 3 months ago. Not entirely transformed. I still feel that pull toward emotional retreat, still have moments where my old defenses rise automatically, but I notice them now. I can choose to lower them, even continua 1355 when it is uncomfortable. And I will keep choosing that, Eleanor, every day as many times as necessary. That is all I can ask." She reached out, taking his hand in hers, and the gesture felt monumental. The first physical contact they had initiated in weeks of carefully maintained distance. "Then let us keep choosing, together." 3 months after Eleanor left Thornwick Hall, she returned. Not permanently, not yet, but for a visit, to see how it felt to be back, to test whether the changes they had been building in Bath could survive transplantation to the estate where old patterns were so deeply rooted. Edmund was terrified. He had spent weeks preparing, talking with the servants about new ways of running the household, working with the vicar who had become something like a confessor and counselor, mentally rehearsing how to remain present and engaged even in the environment where withdrawal had been his default. Eleanor arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, and Edmund greeted her at the door himself, rather than letting the butler perform his usual duties. "Welcome home," he said, then paused. "Or welcome back, rather. I do not presume—" "Home is fine." Eleanor smiled, though he could see the nervousness in her eyes. For now, at least. He showed her to her chamber, the same connecting room she had occupied before, but he had made changes. Her books, which she had left behind, were now arranged on new shelves by the window. Fresh flowers, not from the formal. Gardens, but wildflowers from the meadow she had once mentioned loving, stood in vases throughout the room, and on the small writing desk, a single item, the miniature portrait of her mother that Eleanor had taken to Bath. "I went to retrieve it," Edmund explained when he saw her startled recognition. "From your aunt's. I thought you might want it back, might want to stay." Eleanor picked up the miniature, her eyes bright with tears. "You went all the way to Bath for this?" "I would. Go considerably farther for considerably less." He remained in the doorway, giving her space, aware that this room had been the site of so much loneliness. "I know this chamber holds painful memories. If you would prefer different rooms, more distant rooms, I can arrange—" "No!" Eleanor set down the miniature carefully. "No, this room is fine. Better than fine. It feels—" She looked around, taking in all the small changes he had made. "It feels like someone actually lives here now. Like someone might be happy here." Over the next week, they moved carefully through the routines of the estate, learning to inhabit them differently. Edmund made a point of finding Eleanor throughout the day, not to check on her or assign tasks, but simply to be present, to ask about her thoughts on estate matters, to share small observations, to sit in companionable silence when words were not needed. They walked the gardens together in the evenings, and Edmund found himself seeing Thornwick Hall through new eyes. The roses Eleanor had planted were blooming now in profusions of color and scent. The kitchen garden she had redesigned was flourishing, providing vegetables for the household with plenty left to share with tenant families. Everywhere he looked, there was evidence of her care, her vision, her quiet transformation of the estate from a showpiece into a living home. "I never noticed," he said one evening as they stood watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of rose and gold. "All of this, everything you created here, I was blind." "You were not looking," Eleanor corrected gently, "but you are looking now. That matters." One evening, nearly 2 weeks into her visit, Eleanor appeared at the connecting door between their chambers. Edmund was sitting by the fire attempting to read, but mostly staring into the flames, when he heard her soft knock. "May I come in?" He stood immediately, his heart racing. "Of course. Always." She entered, wrapped in a dressing gown, her hair loose around her shoulders, in a way he had never seen in 3 years of marriage. The intimacy of it, her unbound hair, the late hour, the privacy of his chamber, made his breath catch. "I cannot sleep," she said simply. "I keep thinking about tomorrow." Tomorrow was the day they had agreed she would make her decision. Return to Bath, or stay at Thornwick Hall. Stay as his wife, truly his wife, or continue the separation that had defined the past months. "What are you thinking?" Edmund asked, though his voice was rough with anxiety. Eleanor moved to the other chair by the fire, curling into it like a cat seeking warmth. "I am thinking that I am terrified, that these past weeks have been everything I dreamed of when I married you. You have been attentive, genuine, present. You have shown me the man I hoped existed beneath the reserve, and I am terrified that it cannot last." "Eleanor, let me finish." She held up a hand. "I am terrified it cannot last, but I am more terrified of walking away without trying, of spending the rest of my life wondering if we could have had something real, if only I had been brave enough to risk being hurt again." Edmund felt his throat tighten. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," she took a shaky breath, "I am saying that I would like to stay, to try this, to build a real marriage with you, knowing it will be imperfect, knowing there will be failures and misunderstandings and moments when old patterns resurface, but building. It together as partners, as people who choose each other every day, even when it is difficult. The relief that washed through Edmund was so intense, it was almost painful. "You are certain?" "No," she laughed, though tears were sliding down her cheeks. "I am not certain of anything except that I love you, and I believe you love me, and perhaps that is enough to start with." Edmund moved without thinking, crossing the space between them and kneeling before her chair, taking her hands in his. "It is more than enough. Eleanor, The words tangled on his tongue, years of emotional constraint making even this difficult, but he forced them out, pushed past every defensive instinct. "You are the most extraordinary person I have ever known. You are brilliant and kind and braver than I will ever be. And I know I do not deserve a second chance, but I swear to you, I will spend every day of our lives together, trying to become someone who does. I do not need you to be perfect, Edmund." She cupped his face with trembling hands, forcing him to meet her gaze. "I need you to be present, to be honest, to let me see you, even when you are uncertain or afraid. Can you do that?" "I can try. I am trying." "Then that is enough." She leaned forward, and for the first time in their marriage, they kissed not from duty but from choice, from love, from the tentative hope that broken things could be mended if both parties were willing to do the work of mending. When they finally pulled apart, Eleanor was smiling through her tears. "I should go, return to my chamber. This is perhaps too much, too soon." "Stay." The word escaped before Edmund could think better of it. Not for that. Just stay. Talk with me. I have 3 years of conversations to make up for, and I do not want to wait another moment." Sometimes the most intimate act is not physical, but simply choosing to be fully present with another person. To sit together without pretense, without performance, simply sharing the truth of who we are. So they stayed. They talked through the night, sitting by the fire as it burned down to embers, sharing stories and fears and hopes, learning each other's histories and dreams with the attention they should have paid from the beginning. And as dawn approached, as the first light began to paint the sky beyond the windows, Edmund understood something fundamental. This was what he had been missing. Not just Eleanor's presence in his life, but the possibility of genuine connection, of being known and still loved, of lowering his defenses and discovering that vulnerability did not destroy him, it transformed him. 6 months later, on a crisp December morning, Edmund woke to find Eleanor still asleep beside him. They had been sharing a chamber for 3 months now, having finally, tentatively, built the physical intimacy that matched their emotional connection. But it was still new enough that he sometimes woke with a start of surprise, seeing her, there real and present and choosing him. He watched her sleep for a moment, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the slight flutter of her eyelashes, the peaceful expression that had replaced the constant guardedness she had worn like armor during their first years of marriage. Eleanor's eyes opened, catching him watching. "Good morning." "Good morning." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face with gentle fingers. "I apologize for waking you." "You did not." She stretched, cat-like, then rolled to face him more fully. "I was already beginning to wake. What were you thinking about, staring at me like that?" "I was thinking about how the house fell quiet at dawn, the morning you left, how I woke to that silence and finally understood what I had lost." Eleanor's expression grew serious. "Do you regret that I left?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. "I regret that I drove you to it, but I do not regret that you left, because your leaving forced me to finally change, to become someone capable of this." He gestured between them, encompassing not just their physical proximity, but everything they had built together. The conversations, the trust, the genuine partnership. "We could have had this from the beginning," Eleanor said quietly, "if you had been willing to be vulnerable earlier. I know, and I am sorry for the years I wasted, but I cannot change the past. I can only try to make the future different." She smiled, reaching out to trace the line of his jaw with soft fingers. "You are making it different, every day in 1,000 small ways." They rose together, dressing in companionable silence punctuated by small conversations, discussing the day ahead, sharing observations about the estate, simply being present to each other. It was ordinary, domestic, entirely unremarkable, and it was everything Edmund had not known to want until it was nearly lost. The deepest magic is often found in the mundane, in the daily choice to show up, to pay attention, to love imperfectly but persistently. That evening, as they walked through the winter garden together, Eleanor paused by the roses she had planted, bare now, dormant, but alive beneath the surface, waiting for spring. "Do you know what I have learned?" she asked, her breath misting in the cold air. "Tell me." That love is not a feeling we fall into once and then inhabit forever. It is a choice we make again and again. Each morning when we wake, each evening when we choose conversation over silence, each moment when we choose vulnerability over safety. Edmund pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her from behind as they looked out over the sleeping garden. "And do you choose it? Choose me, even knowing my failings, every day?" She leaned back into his embrace. "Even knowing your failings, perhaps especially knowing them, because they make you human rather than the untouchable Earl I married. And you, do you choose me, even though I am not the perfectly compliant wife you thought you wanted?" "Every day," he echoed, "especially because you are not compliant, because you challenged me, forced me to grow, refused to accept less than I was capable of giving. You saved me, Eleanor, from myself, from a half-life of performance and distance. You saved me." They stood in silence as twilight deepened. Two imperfect people who had chosen each other, failed each other, and then chosen each other again. The house that had fallen quiet at dawn now hummed. With life, servants preparing dinner, fires crackling in hearths throughout the rooms, the small sounds of a home that was truly inhabited. And Edmund understood, with the clarity that comes from nearly losing everything, that this was what mattered. Not the title, not the estate, not the public performance of aristocratic life, but this, the quiet intimacy of two people learning to truly see each other, the courage to be vulnerable, the choice to keep choosing day after day, even when it was difficult. The house had fallen quiet at dawn, and Edmund had understood she had left, but the story did not end there. It began again, each morning, with the choice to love. And that, Edmund was learning, was the most extraordinary thing of all. We have journeyed together through Edmund and Eleanor's story, a tale of pride, blindness, and ultimately, transformation. But what can we, living in our modern world, learn from this aristocratic romance set 2 centuries ago? The lessons, I believe, are timeless and profoundly relevant to our own relationships and lives. Edmund's greatest failing was not cruelty, but absence. He treated his wife with perfect courtesy while remaining emotionally unavailable, believing that propriety was sufficient. How many of us do the same? We show up physically, at dinner tables, in bedrooms, at family gatherings, while remaining psychologically distant, scrolling through phones, replaying work conversations in our heads, anywhere but truly present with the people we claim to love. The lesson: presence is not just physical proximity. True presence requires emotional engagement, the willingness to be vulnerable, to share not just our schedules but our inner lives. When we withdraw into performance, being the perfect employee, the dutiful spouse, the responsible parent, without showing our authentic selves, we create the same loneliness Edmund created for Eleanor. Eleanor needed to be seen, truly seen as a complete person with thoughts, dreams, fears, and desires beyond her role as Edmund's wife. Instead, Edmund saw her as a competent manager of his household, never bothering to look deeper. Do we do this to the people in our lives? Do we reduce our partners to their functions, the person who makes dinner, handles childcare, manages finances, without recognizing the full human being underneath? The lesson: every person in your life is infinitely more complex than the role they play for you. Your partner is not just a co-parent or housemate. Your colleague is not just the person who handles that account. Your parent is not just the person from your childhood, but a full human with their own struggles, dreams, and inner life. Take time to actually see them. Ask questions not just about what they did, but how they felt. Notice the small signals of joy or pain. Pay attention. Edmund's protective walls, built after his heart was broken by Miranda, seemed like wisdom. Do not feel too much, and you cannot be hurt too much. But those walls did not just protect him, they imprisoned him. They prevented not just pain but also joy, connection, and genuine love. How many of us build similar walls, telling ourselves we are being smart, protecting ourselves, when we are actually limiting our capacity for meaningful relationship? The lesson: vulnerability is not weakness, it is courage. Opening yourself to another person, sharing your fears, admitting your failures, expressing your needs, creates the possibility of rejection. But it also creates the possibility of genuine connection. Without vulnerability, we might have safety, but we will never have intimacy. Both Edmund and Eleanor failed to communicate honestly. Edmund never asked what Eleanor needed, because he feared the answer might require him to change. Eleanor never directly stated her unhappiness, because she had been taught that ladies do not make demands. This mutual silence created years of unnecessary suffering. The lesson: clear, honest communication is not optional. For healthy relationships, we cannot expect others to read our minds or intuit our needs. We must speak them. And equally important, we must create the kind of atmosphere where others feel safe speaking theirs. This means not just talking, but also listening. Truly listening without defensiveness, without immediately problem-solving, just hearing. What ultimately began to change Edmund? Attention. He started paying attention to Eleanor, to the evidence of her care throughout the house, to her interests and preferences, to the person she actually was rather than the person he had assumed. This attention was itself an act of love. The lesson: attention is love made visible. In our distracted age, giving someone your full attention is a radical act. Put down the phone, turn off the TV. Look at the person speaking to you. Notice the details of their lives. Remember what they mention matters to them. This kind of attention says, "You are important. You are worth my time. I see you." Edmund's transformation was not instantaneous or complete. He struggled. He failed sometimes. He had to consciously choose again and again to act differently than his instincts suggested. This is realistic. Real change is difficult, incremental, and requires persistent effort. The lesson: if you are trying to change patterns in your own life or relationships, be patient with yourself. Change is not linear. You will have setbacks. The measure of growth is not perfection, but persistence. Can you notice when you fall back into old patterns? Can you apologize genuinely? Can you choose differently next time? That is what matters. Edmund could have blamed Miranda for his emotional unavailability, or blamed his father for teaching him that feelings were weakness, or blamed society for its expectations. Instead, he took responsibility for his choices and their impact on Eleanor. He did not justify or excuse, but acknowledged, "I did this. I hurt you. I am sorry." The lesson: we all have reasons for our defensive patterns, childhood wounds, past betrayals, cultural conditioning. Understanding these reasons can help us have compassion for ourselves. But understanding is not the same as excusing. At some point, we must take responsibility for the impact our behavior has on others, regardless of our intentions or our history. Perhaps most surprisingly, Edmund had to learn that loving Eleanor meant being willing to let her go, to support her happiness, even if that happiness did not include him. This is radical love, wanting good things for someone not because it serves you but because you genuinely care about their well-being. The lesson: true love is not possessive. It does not cling or demand. It certainly does not hold someone hostage to our own comfort. Sometimes loving someone means giving them space to find themselves, even if that process takes them away from you. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, that freedom is what creates the possibility for genuine connection. Edmund and Eleanor could not erase their painful history. They could not start their marriage over as though those 3 years had not happened, but they could start from where they were, with honesty about the past and commitment to building something different going forward. The lesson: you cannot undo past mistakes, whether in relationships or in life, but you can acknowledge them, learn from them, and choose differently going forward. Do not let the perfect become the enemy of the good. You may not be able to create the ideal relationship or life you wish you had built from the beginning, but you can create something real and meaningful starting from exactly where you are right now. The story ends not with a dramatic pronouncement, but with the recognition that love is a daily choice. Edmund and Eleanor choose each other each morning, each evening, in small moments and large. This is not the romantic fantasy of effortless passion, but something deeper, the committed partnership of two people willing to do the work of loving well. The lesson: if you are waiting for love to feel easy, you may wait forever. Good relationships require effort. They require showing up on days when you do not feel like it. They require choosing kindness when you would rather be right. They require patience with another person's flaws and patience with your own. This is not a failure of love, but its most mature expression. Edmund and Eleanor's story is, at its heart, about two people learning to be human together, to shed the performances and pretenses that society and their own fears demanded, and to risk being truly known. This is the work we are all called to, in our marriages and partnerships, in our friendships, in our families, and even in our relationship with ourselves. We live in an age of curated images and careful presentation, where we can craft the perfect online persona while remaining strangers to ourselves and those closest to us. Edmund and Eleanor's journey reminds us that beneath all our roles and performances, we are simply human, flawed, frightened, hopeful, capable of both tremendous damage and tremendous growth. The question is, will we have the courage to be seen, to see others, to choose vulnerability over safety, attention over distraction, growth over comfort? The house fell quiet at dawn, and everything changed. But change began not with dramatic gesture, but with simple choice, to pay attention, to be honest, to show up. What quiet draws a weight in your own life? What might you discover if you finally begin to pay attention? The choice, as always, is yours.